Hour number 2. Welcome to it live right here on the opening day of a new week. It is a Monday live on the early line on SportsGrid, all across the SportsGrid network. He is Donnie right side. I am Ben Stevens. 2 more hours to go up until 11 a.m. Eastern time. Starting today in the National Football League, noon Eastern time, clubs can start to make contact with players that are looking for a new home in the National Football League. The league year officially starts on Wednesday. That is when you will see guys start to sign the bottom line of their new deals, but we already saw some big moves and some acquisitions over the weekend. That's how we start this second hour live right here on TEL.
It's a great day, it really is, because we are on the cusp of, again, Ben, as you talked about, my favorite week of the college basketball calendar is this week. Did very well again last week. It's your last chance for like versus like competition. You've got 20 or so games in from these teams playing each other here. All the numbers are in. It should be such a fun ride here until we get to Selection Sunday, and we know how big March Madness obviously is. But also, for the NFL to throw in free agency this week as well, there are so many topics to hit. And I love the fact that even the NFL is like, okay, let's give you an extra couple days for tampering. Do we actually believe general managers like Howie Roseman are waiting until 1 o'clock today to pick up the phone and talk to somebody? No. These things have been back-channeled. And my favorite part about this tampering period, Ben, by like 105, 5 major stars will have agreed to contracts that probably are this thick with hundreds of pages, but that was done in 3 or 4 minutes here to secure that. I can't wait to watch it play out, but it's a great time here when sports collide, like college basketball and the NFL free agency period. Let's get it on, man.
And let's make sure everybody is here for it. We welcome in our SportsGrid radio audience. Hour number 2, live on this Monday on the early line. He is Donnie, I am Ben. You're listening on Sirius XM, channel 159. All of our radio terrestrial affiliates now in the mix as well. Some NFL news and notes as that non-tampering contact window officially starts at noon Eastern. But believe you me, the burner phones have been hot all weekend long with the league year in the NFL officially beginning on Wednesday. Then to end out this second hour, our coach, JY, steps up and in first. And then Mr. March, John Rothstein, now that we get into conference championship week, will be here to end out this second hour. And Donnie's right. You might hear about some contracts becoming official with the league year starting on Wednesday, but the insiders are going to be tweeting out the specs of the deal and those big breaking news bits here over the next few days. That included late last night. Pittsburgh has a new quarterback, a new starting quarterback. That is the conversation. Russell Wilson intends to sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers when the league year becomes official on Wednesday. Vet minimum deal, just a 1-year deal for $1.2 million after a huge contract in Denver. Russ isn't too concerned with the figures, just an opportunity to resurrect his career after a disastrous 2-year run in the Mile High City.
And also, let's take a look at what actually happened over the weekend, because we were reading that Russell Wilson was in New Jersey at Newark Airport because he had a meeting with the New York Giants. Similar scenario to what we're seeing there out in Pittsburgh, layover there. Similar to seeing what we're actually, going with who's that starting quarterback going to be. Because Daniel Jones coming back, nobody wants him here for the Giants. Not even the Giants want that guy back. So it's interesting that he got out of town. But also, same scenario with Kenny Pickett, who's much more affordable if you could sit him on the bench as opposed to a $40 million contract in Daniel Jones. Now, you take a look moving forward at what makes sense here. The FanDuel Sportsbook, and again, my memory isn't so great, but I know it wasn't an 11-1 price last week for the Pittsburgh Steelers to win the division. And you say, well, Donnie, if you're not that excited about Russell Wilson going to Pittsburgh, you got more confident, which is what you got here. If you take that exact same Russell Wilson last year from the Denver Broncos, who didn't have great numbers but still had respectable numbers, and put him on the Steelers, who every quarterback had horrendous numbers, you're a better football team right away. Is that a conference contending quarterback? No, it's not. A Super Bowl champion? Absolutely not. But you got more confident over the weekend, which is what the Pittsburgh Steelers were looking for, saying, all right, on opening day, at least I think I can trust this guy, as opposed to going, hey, let's see what we got out of Kenny Pickett. Oh, no, we're 1-4 to start the season. You won't get that with Russell Wilson here. But at the same time, look at it from Russ's point of view. And I just talked about this before the break, Ben. Russell Wilson didn't talk to the Pittsburgh Steelers where they went, you know what? We'll give you every opportunity to start if you come in and play good football. Nonsense here. Because you know why? Russell Wilson wouldn't have signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers before free agency actually began, where people were shaking down the rosters. He would have went to 7 or 8 different football teams and tried to get the best leverage situation. The Pittsburgh Steelers picked up the phone and said, come on, man. If you can't beat out Kenny Pickett, you're not an NFL quarterback. He signed on the dotted line right there. There is no quarterback competition. It's Russell Wilson's Pittsburgh Steelers here moving forward.
Completely agree. From the Pittsburgh Steelers side, Kenny Pickett enters year number 3 of his NFL campaign, the 20th overall pick in the 2022 NFL draft. There might have been high hopes, and maybe under a new offensive scheme under Arthur Smith, it unlocks that potential of Pickett. But when Kenny Pickett returned from his ankle injury that allowed Mason Rudolph to get the start, it first was Mitchell Trubisky, then Mason Rudolph. When Kenny Pickett was back healthy, in a game in Buffalo where the Steelers were a 10-point underdog already, for Pickett to not earn the starting job over Mason Rudolph tells you all you need to know about how the Steelers franchise as a whole feels about Kenny Pickett's future. Russell Wilson, in my estimation, and in Donnie's, will be the Week 1 starter for the Pittsburgh Steelers to begin the 2024 NFL season. Now, what is the ceiling for Russ? Will he be the cook that we saw for 10 years in Seattle, 9 Pro Bowl seasons in those 10 years? Will it look a little bit more like what we saw over the past 2 years with the Broncos? Maybe, but last year, for instance, it was a career low in terms of his passing yardage, 3,070. That was it. 26 touchdowns, though, to only 8 interceptions. 66.4% was that completion rate for Russ. That was the third best in his now 12-year NFL career. I still think he has something. Is he a top 10 quarterback in the National Football League? No. Is he top half? He might flirt with it. And to Donnie's point about the odds, by no means does this make the Steelers a playoff frontrunner, a team that will contend for an AFC championship. They still have the longest number to win the AFC North Division, one of the best in football, 11-1. But they were 40-1 to win the AFC championship last week. Shave $4 off that price. That's not Kenny Pickett moving the market. That is Russell Wilson, now 36-1. It's still the 5th longest number, DRS. Again, the ceiling is not now astronomical for Pittsburgh, but for a consistently successful franchise, Russell Wilson at the quarterback spot is at least an upgrade.
It is an upgrade here. And also, you take a look at the Denver Broncos, who were injured just about the entire year at wide receiver. And also keep in mind, those numbers do include him being benched here, Ben. That wasn't a full 17-game slate for Russell Wilson. So if you can add in a couple extra touchdown passes and a little bit more yardage there, that looks even a little bit better. But let's make no mistake about it. You take a look at the FanDuel Sportsbook right now for the NFC North. Top to bottom, Ben, by far the most competitive division in the NFL now with Russell Wilson. Looks like he's going to be the quarterback now there moving forward for the Steelers.
We'll have plenty more quarterback news around the National Football League and some more news and notes around the NFL as well. Baker Mayfield returns to Tampa Bay. We had Mac Jones finding a new home as well. That comes your way up next, live right here on the Early Line.
The Bostonian versus the book.
In the Big Ten, it's the same thing. No offense to you guys. This feels like the Penn State rule. This feels like... This is a guaranteed Penn State to get in.
We need to find a way to let them in because they can't beat Michigan. They can't beat Ohio State. But if we make them a third...
They get in.
This is
the Penn
always
State
going to
rule.
be better than the West half.
Yep.
That 1 year that Lightning in a Bottle catches on the West half, we'll let them in too because they'll bring people.
The Bostonian versus the book.
The books are treating the Celtics 4 points better at minimum than maybe every single team in the NBA. And so far, I believe they've covered every game since the break.
The Celtics' strict goal here, anything less than a finals appearance and a finals championship is going to be a failure for the Celtics. They got all the pressure in the world across the board here.
Game time decisions only on SportsGrid.
laying points on the road in college basketball is an absolute landmine. I would not do it. I won't do it the rest of the year. I'm done doing that because it just consistently loses.
I mean, 3 possessions in a 9-point game in which the opposition now is the clock, not the actual team you're facing, right?
Right.
And these guys are taking up shots. I mean, it's just like, that's why it's the NBA.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid. SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Pro League Soccer, powered by Marca.
I would be willing to bet the under 2.5 goals.
Fantasy sports today.
Especially in head-to-head formats in fantasy, I think I'm going to go with Juan Soto.
Game time decisions.
People don't like it. I don't really care. I cannot believe anybody is betting the Clippers at this number.
Betting above the
All
rim.
I've heard you say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live, all access.
Nobody has been more profitable as a dog than Shaka Smart team.
Winning back-to-back road games. I don't care if they're playing Topeka High. I wouldn't give them any chance whatsoever.
In-game live, prime time.
Back-to-back, just utterly stinker quarters.
In-game live, overtime.
Honestly, as you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Plenty of quarterback news as the NFL league year begins this week on Wednesday, all around the NFL. We welcome you back to the early line. Russell Wilson is now a Pittsburgh Steelers. Mac Jones is now a Jacksonville Jaguar. We'll get to that in a moment. And Baker Mayfield remains in Tampa after the Bucs did not place the franchise tag on Baker, making him a free agent. The expectation was that they would work out a renegotiated long-term deal, and that's what they have. 3 years, $100 million. And that's the story, DRS, because Baker last year signed a 1-year deal worth $5 million, up to about $8.5 million with incentives to prove it for the Buccaneers. He did. He led Tampa to an NFC South divisional crown. He led Tampa to a home playoff victory against Philadelphia. And now he gets paid. But in my estimation, the value makes sense for both sides, especially given the quarterback market. A little bit more than $33 million per year annually. That's not a bad number for QBs now in the National Football League.
No, it's not. And that's what people have to get over now. And I sort of equate it back to a couple years ago in the NBA when that first monster television contract kicked in and everybody got paid numbers we had never seen before. It's just the new wave here. And it's not as just like, oh, that's going to kill their salary cap. The salary cap went up $30 million this year. That's why Baker Mayfield is getting paid 3 years, $100 million with $50 guaranteed. Roll back the clock in the NFL 5 or 6 years. He's probably the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. But we know that's how things work. The price of the brick is always going up. And that's a good deal here for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield. But here's the thing you laugh at, right? He's still far and away right now the best overall quarterback in the NFC South. But the Buccaneers still a plus 220 price to win that division behind the Falcons, who were anticipating maybe Kirk Cousins on the horizon, who knows? But everybody, like the Saints didn't get great quarterback play last year from Corey. Take a look at the Panthers. Who knows what they're going to get out of their young quarterback in Bryce Young? And the Atlanta Falcons are still in turmoil of who's going to be their guy. So this didn't move the needle all that much. Why? Because odds makers are smart. We knew weeks in advance Baker Mayfield was never leaving the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to go to the Seattle Seahawks and play football for them. They just wanted to make sure they got a deal that was affordable for the team and Baker would be happy. That's a decent football team in the South that has a chance to win that division in back-to-back years. And that's all you can ask for. It's a fair price all the way around.
With Mike Evans returning as well, I think there's value on the Buccaneers. That Falcons price, to have Atlanta at plus 130, nearing even money to win this division, that is a Kirk Cousins / Justin Fields number. That is a new quarterback number. That's not Desmond Ridder. That's not Taylor Heineke. Something to pay attention to as free agency really gets underway this week around the National Football League. The end of an era in Foxborough. Mac Jones's time in New England has come to a close. They ship him to Jacksonville in exchange for a 6th-round pick. How quickly a quarterback's value in the marketplace can diminish. Like a new car fresh off the lot, as soon as it hits pavement, see you later. The 15th overall pick in the 2021 NFL Draft that in his rookie campaign led the Pats to double-digit wins and a playoff appearance. Only 2 years after that is traded to Jacksonville for a sixth rounder. How quickly things can work in the National Football League.
And you're taking a look at Mac Jones here, and you say to yourself, well, where did it go wrong here? And I think it went wrong immediately right off the bat because Bill Belichick controls the organization for the Patriots. So it wasn't as if like, hey, well, Robert Kraft came down and said, you must draft this quarterback here if you still want to be my head coach. We know that didn't happen. That was his guy. But when I knew that Mac Jones was never going to be the franchise guy and not to be able to lead them into anything here was that one game against the Buffalo Bills on the road in windy conditions where they basically said, you know what? Our best chance of victory is never letting our franchise quarterback throw the football here. And most people love it. Like, man, that's such a great Belichick scheme. They went in and beat Buffalo. That's what you do. And I took a completely opposite takeaway by going like, man, they think their quarterback is this bad with a weak arm here in the AFC that he's not going to be able to compete. And their best way to victory is not even letting him touch the football here. You knew right away here. And the things went off the rails because they didn't surround him with enough talent at wide receiver and tight end. They tried to run the football in today's age in the NFL. That's not going to work here. So the one thing I do appreciate is they moved on from Belichick. They said, you know what? This isn't my guy. Let's move on now. Let's get a fresh start. Let's draft a quarterback in the draft, which is for the health of the organization. Exactly, Ben, what you needed to do, and they did that. Mac Jones had to leave. He had to.
It is a great move for the Patriots. We'll talk about the ramifications up next, but I do just want to make this point. Mac Jones will now be the backup, maybe, in Jacksonville behind Trevor Lawrence, who was the first overall pick. There were 5 quarterbacks taken in the 2021 NFL Draft. Trevor Lawrence was first. Mac Jones was 15th. All 5 went in the top 15 of that opening round. Zach Wilson was 2. He's gone or will be gone from the New York Jets. Trey Lance was 3. He was traded last offseason to the Dallas Cowboys. Justin Fields was number 11 overall. More than likely, he is going to be traded from Chicago this offseason as well. Mac Jones has already been dealt. That means one of those 5 quarterbacks, Trevor Lawrence, is going to start next season on the team that drafted him, entering his 4th NFL year. In both Trevor Lawrence and Mac Jones will now be in the same quarterback room. Jerod Mayo, at his introductory press conference for New England, I thought said many impactful things. One, he appreciates coaching under and playing for Bill Belichick, but it was time to modernize the Patriot way. And number 2, when asked about what the Pats would do with the 3rd overall pick in this year's draft, he didn't say we're taking a quarterback. He didn't say we like Jaden Daniels more than Drake May. We hope Caleb Williams falls. None of that. He said we are taking the most important player in football. You could read between the tea leaves. That is a quarterback. So the favorite to go 3rd overall is the reigning Heisman winner out of LSU, Jaden Daniels, plus 130. Still 40 cents in front of Drake May at plus 170. There is steam around the name J.J. McCarthy, the man that you can see there on that screen as well. Now a 6-1 number. But, Donnie, it's pretty simple for me. The Patriots are drafting a quarterback 3rd overall.
No doubt about it. And also, let's take a look at what should happen for the Patriots. And here's what I think needs to happen for them and also to excite their fan base. You don't want to pass over Drake May if he's going to be there at 3rd on the board. And you say, well, why would that even be, Donnie? If he's the best player that you think, you take him at 3. If I'm the Patriots, you've had years and years and years, and quite frankly, a lot of success because you drafted the best quarterback in the history of the sport in Tom Brady. But it's more statue-esque quarterbacks under Bill Belichick, right? I would love to see that new millennium, the New England Patriots here, to get that super athletic quarterback and sort of step up and give you that run passing threat. So if you're sitting here at 3 and Drake May was off the board at 2, it's sort of like you're off the hook. Like, yeah, well, we got to take Jaden Daniels here at this point here, and we'll see what happens. Because if it doesn't work out, you did take the best player on the board at that point, but you didn't say, you know what, we never expected Jaden Daniels and also Drake May to be here at 3, if you see what I'm getting at here. I would love for those 2 quarterbacks, Caleb Williams and Drake May, to be off the board. You get Daniels at 3. I think it'd be an exciting time, and quite frankly, the only way to bring those Patriot fans back into the tent after a Belichick-Tom Brady run is give them some excitement here. That's Jaden Daniels. Can you imagine if Jaden Daniels really hits there with the next 5 to 6 years in New England? He'd be a flat-out superstar in the NFL, and they'd be like, you know what? Things aren't so bad now outside of Tom Brady here. I want to see them get Daniels. I really do at 3.
If you see Donnie Rightside walking through the streets over the next few days, make sure to give him a handshake, maybe a hug, because his Philadelphia Eagles and the staples of teams that won Super Bowls or won NFC championships, they're starting to depart. Jason Kelce officially announcing his retirement last week. Fletcher Cox, the longtime anchor of the defensive line for the Birds, also announces his retirement yesterday, Donnie.
Yeah, and the interesting part about that, too, from my fandom perspective is, yes, Kelce is gone, one of the best centers to ever play. Fletcher Cox, one of the best defensive linemen the Philadelphia Eagles have ever had, and a wonderful draft pick about a decade ago, number 12 overall. He played just about every single game, was an unbelievable player, Pro Bowler, All-Pro. But you know how I look at it now as a fan? Tampering starts today here. Kelce was about $15 million against the cap. Fletcher Cox, a little bit over $10 million. That's $25 million we can spend today, baby. Forget about these icons here. Who are the new icons coming into town? But no getting around it. Fletcher Cox was a really good player for a long time for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Chris Jones for Kansas City remains with the Chiefs. Now, the highest paid defensive tackle in football. 5-year deal, 100 and, let me make sure I have the contract figure correct, $58 million, a little bit more than that, with over $100 million guaranteed. Again, the highest paid DT in all of the sport. Now it's March. It's college basketball next.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
In the Big Ten, it's the same thing. No offense to you guys. This feels like the Penn State rule. This feels like this is the guaranteed Penn State to get in.
We need to find a way to let them in because they can't beat Michigan. They can't beat Ohio State. But if we make them a third,
they get in.
Third,
this is the Penn State rule.
Be better than the West half.
Yep.
That 1 year that Lightning in a Bottle catches on the West half, we'll let them in too because they'll bring people.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
The Books are treating the Celtics 4 points better at minimum than maybe every single team in the NBA. And so far, I believe they've covered every game since the break.
The Celtics' strict goal here, anything less than a finals appearance and a finals championship is going to be a failure for the Celtics. They got all the pressure in the world across the board here.
Game time decisions only on SportsGrid.
Laying points on the road in college basketball is an absolute landmine. I would not do it. I won't do it the rest of the year. I'm done doing that because it just consistently loses.
I mean, 3 possessions in a 9-point game in which the opposition now is the clock, not the actual team you're facing, right?
Right.
And these guys are taking up shots. I mean, it's just like, that's why it's the NBA.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid. SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Pro League Soccer, powered by Marca.
I would be willing to bet the under 2.5 goals.
Fantasy sports today.
Especially in head-to-head formats in fantasy, I think I'm going to go with Juan Soto.
Game time decisions.
People don't like it. I don't really care. I cannot believe anybody is betting the Clippers at this number.
Betting above the rim.
All I've heard you say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live, all access.
Nobody has been more profitable as a dog than Shaka Smart Team.
Winning back-to-back road games. I don't care if they're playing Topeka High. I wouldn't give them any chance whatsoever.
In-game live, prime time.
Back-to-back, just utterly stinker quarters.
In-game live, overtime.
Honestly, as you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
It's March. It's madness. It's conference championship week after the regular season finales at the high major level around men's college basketball this past weekend. So in all this chaos, in all this intensity, who can you count on? A coach. Our coach. It is JY, James Young, joining us live right here to kick off this new week. Live on a Monday on the early line. JY, glad to have you here on TEL all across the SportsGrid network to look back on the weekend that was and set the stage for conference championship week at the high major level as everybody is looking to punch a ticket to the big day.
Yeah, this is definitely an opportunity for a lot of teams to make their move, and this is it, folks. As a coach, all this comes down to literally, man, 40 minutes. If you don't have your best 40 on the floor, you could be going home. Big week in college basketball.
Not a great 40-second start out of JY. Let's hit the read button on that vMix browser and get him back here in just a moment. Maybe I froze. Looks like it's frozen here in studio. DRS, if you can hear me, I would take it right now, my man.
Yep, we're going to take it right now. Let's get it after it, Coach. Let's have some fun here as we are setting up, heading down the stretch here into conference tournament week here. But I want to start with the Houston Cougars and the Kansas Jayhawks that we saw over the weekend. I don't know if I expected this. I thought Houston was the better team. They were favored at the FanDuel Sportsbook to roughly win by double digits. They won by 30. So basically, if you didn't know about the Houston Cougars, you know about them now. This team handled their business in a tough Big 12, going 15-3. Talk to me about those Houston Cougars in their first year at this high major level.
Well, if you really look at it, Donnie, if you take back what happened the game before, I expected Houston to win. I was like you. Did I expect a 30-point blowout? Absolutely not. But what they do is they grind you down. And they can play as good or better half-court defense than anybody in the country. So if you look at the first game, how Kansas won shooting the ball the best they shot all year, now look at this game. 33.3% from the floor, 14.3% from the three-point line, getting out-rebounded by 7, committing 8 more turnovers. Houston did everything they needed to do to win this game. And I want people to understand something. Do not tell me it's because Hunter Dickinson got hurt. They were down 22 points when he went down. The game was over when Hunter got hurt. So, to me, Houston showed why, Donnie, they are the number one team in the country. Now, we've talked about it. They're not the best team in the country. I still think that's UConn, but they are definitely the second best, and I really think we're starting to see those two teams separate themselves even from Purdue.
Great stuff here over the weekend, of course. Also, Coach, by the way, let me bring this up right now. You come on, professional here, talking college basketball. I mean, why would Ben blame you for technical difficulties when we know it was Ben's side here? I mean, do you want to get a little bit of shot in here on that?
You know what? Listen, JY was on a little bit of a 1-week suspension here on the early line, so I got to make sure I don't say anything and get myself in trouble. So, no, it was just a mistake, but hey, I'm here. We'll get Ben back as soon as the difficulties get figured out over there in New York City.
There we go. No difficulties here with this basketball team, Coach. The Kentucky Wildcats, about 2.5 weeks ago, we were singing the praise of Kentucky. Ooh, look at this. Maybe a team that you can look for that maybe not many people are eyeing up here at about a 40-1 price to cut down the nets, come March Madness. They had a great weekend again. The Kentucky Wildcats, 85, go on the road and knock off the SEC regular season champions, 85-81. In a game that saw Dalton Knecht drop 40 points in this one, it didn't matter. Kentucky, 13-5 in SEC play, one of the favorites here heading into the tournament, and they got a bench going. Shepard dropped 27 points, Dillingham with 11. It's very rare in college basketball that you have an impressive starting lineup, but an equally impressive bench that can come in and fill it up, Coach.
And I think it's funny because when I was on with K-Dub over the weekend on Game Time Decisions, we talked about the fact of, like, why would, Cal not start Dillingham? Why wouldn't he start Shepard? Here's why, folks. It's very simple. It's called roster balance, right? You have literally, let's be honest, Donnie, 2 teams, 10 guys in which at the guard position particularly, they have 6 guards that, let's be honest, can probably start anywhere in the country. Let's just say it right now. So what you do if you're a Cal is you get games and then you see who gets going. And then you start to ride that team. So now Shepard is the guy. Obviously, DJ Wagner didn't play well. Only 4 points, fouled out. But then you have Dillingham. So to me, Kentucky becomes this team. It's about their defense and their maturity. Because when it comes down to offense, Donnie, there's no team in the country that's got better overall guard play and the I would call it the shot creation, right, as you will. The ability to get shots and create their own shots. They're as dangerous as anybody, and they're a team where, depending on what bracket they end up on, they could really make a strong case to win the national championship. Hence why their odds keep getting shorter, and shorter.
Winners of 7 of 8 games here for Kentucky in a very good SEC conference. That one loss was at LSU by 1 point. Coach, if you remember in that game, blew a double-digit lead in the second half in that one. So quite frankly, playing some of their best basketball at the right time here. We'll see if Coach Cal can certainly make a run. But let's take a look at the odds board here at the FanDuel Sportsbook and take a look at some of those front runners because these numbers are changing by the moment here. Connecticut, if they look at that top shelf, Coach, plus 480, Houston now plus 650 price. When we saw Connecticut over the weekend at a 5-1 price and Houston at a 7-1 price. Impressive victories there have shifted their numbers. Purdue now takes a little bit of a step back here. They were tied with Houston at a 7-1 price, now a plus 750. But maybe the biggest mover here, we had about a 10-1 price on Tennessee, Coach, and doing the show this morning, they've now dropped back to a 13-1. Talk to us about some of these teams that can see a bounce from over the weekend, but also more importantly, seeing a bounce from tournament play this week.
Yeah, I mean, if you start to look at it, folks, first thing is that's most important when it comes down to this tournament, we need to figure out who's going to be that 4 seed, Donnie, that fourth 1 seed, right? We know the first 3 are locked up. It doesn't matter what happens in the conference tournament; those 3 are locked in, right? Is it Tennessee, right? Is it Duke? Is it Carolina, who I think is steamrolling past a lot of these teams, and I think should be the number 1 seed over Tennessee or Arizona, provided that they can finish the job and win the ACC tournament and beat Duke 3 straight times. But it's really going to be about matchups. But, folks, if you start looking down the board here, there is value, right? And I'm going to start and I'm going to say a ton of value because it's starting to move. Creighton at 25-1's intriguing, okay? They're intriguing because of the guard play, their ability to knock shots down. They don't turn the ball over, and they got a big and Kalkbrenner that can neutralize a big like a Diamond Klingon, right? Let's move down. Marquette, they're moving down because of Kolek. That is going to be the big thing is, what do you get out of Tyler Kolek? It's an oblique injury, folks. I'm a coach. That is not good. That involves cutting, moving. Every time he moves, he's going to feel it. So what do you happens with them? And then you start looking at a team that I think at 30-1 needs to be talked about, and that's Illinois. Now, they're kind of like Kentucky, right? They score like in reckless abandonment, but they don't get stops. If Brad Underwood can find a way to get stops, especially with Shannon Jr., they got guys that can get buckets. 30-1 Illinois. Don't sleep on this team if they get in the right bracket, meaning they're away from UConn, they're away from Purdue, and they're away from Houston. That's where you got to find the value, where they're going to be, as long as they're not in those other 3 brackets.
Yeah, they were going to be a rocket ship for me, Coach, if they handled their business against Purdue. Had a good hard fight at home in Champaign, but Purdue showed their mettle and won that basketball game. So I do agree with you in Illinois. Talk to me about this. The Pac-12 conference here, similar to me with the ACC. Not as deep as what it used to be in the past, but we saw over the weekend USC take out Arizona. Now, granted, Arizona had already clinched the regular season championship for the Pac-12. Good win for USC overall. But talk to me about moving forward, because it's one of the teams I feel like doesn't come up all that much on the show when people say, you know what, here's a team I think can cut down the nets. What's up with Arizona?
Inconsistency, particularly on the road, Donnie. And listen, I'm gonna give those kids a little bit of a pass. You know why? Because they're young kids and they already had the Pac-12 wrapped up. So if there was a spot for them to lay an egg, it was on Saturday on the road. But I do think there is concern there. But really quick, Pac-12, people start talking about all these bubble teams. No one's talking about Colorado. Colorado's resume is very similar to some of these teams on the bubble and not getting talked about. Boyles is one of the better coaches in the country. They've had an up-and-down season. KJ Simpson's a star guard. If they will be a team to watch if they get in, because they may be a team that could spring an upset.
Let's flip it over quickly here to women's college basketball, which you might even bleed this over into the next segment because it was a fantastic weekend on the court for the women. South Carolina down in the SEC, 79-72 victors over LSU. It got chippy. It's exactly what rivalries are supposed to be. But there we sit with South Carolina and Dawn Staley, to me, the best coach in women's college basketball. 32-0, 16-0 in the SEC, and away they go into the tournament here. Talk to us there about that LSU-South Carolina game, which had everything you wanted in a competitive environment.
You know what? I'm going to want to talk about that next segment. But you know what I want to talk about right now? Hey, Kelly Harper, what were you doing? I understand Cardozo hasn't shot and made a three in her college career, but you're going to let a kid who's a D1 player catch the ball at the top of the key and shoot it and not even contest it? Basketballs are not boomerangs, folks. When they go somewhere, they're going to end there. Close out, put your hand up. You deserve you got the loss, but we'll get into it next segment because I do think South Carolina being young, I'm coming back in the next segment. I want to talk more about this. I'll talk to you. I'll let you finish it up. This guy's throwing me off of my ear.
Look at that. Look, sometimes you have to make adjustments live on the air. We got double JY at this point here. Who knows what's going to happen next segment, but I guarantee you, you don't want to miss it.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
In the Big Ten, it's the same thing. No offense to you guys. This feels like the Penn State rule. This feels like this is the guaranteed Penn State to get in.
We need to find a way to let them in because they can't beat Michigan. They can't beat Ohio State. But if we make them a third,
they get in. This is
they're
the Penn
always
State
going to
rule.
be better than the West half.
Yep.
And that 1 year that Lightning in a Bottle catches on the West half, we'll let them in too because they'll bring people.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
The Brooks are treating the Celtics 4 points better at minimum than maybe every single team in the NBA. And so far, I believe they've covered every game since the break.
The Celtics' strict goal here, anything less than a finals appearance and a finals championship is going to be a failure for the Celtics. They got all the pressure in the world across the board here.
Game time decisions only on SportsGrid.
Laying points on the road in college basketball is an absolute landmine. I would not do it. I won't do it the rest of the year. I'm done doing that because it just consistently loses.
I mean, 3 possessions in a 9-point game in which the opposition now is the clock, not the actual team you're facing, right?
Right.
And these guys are taking up shots. I mean, it's just like, that's why it's the NBA.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid. SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Pro League Soccer, powered by Marca.
I would be willing to bet the under 2.5 goals.
Fantasy sports today.
Especially in head-to-head formats in fantasy, I think I'm going to go with Juan Soto.
Game time decisions.
People don't like it. I don't really care. I cannot believe anybody is betting the Clippers at this number.
Betting above the
All
rim.
I've heard you say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live, all access.
Nobody has been more profitable as a dog than Shaka Smart team.
Winning back-to-back road games. I don't care if they're playing Topeka High. I wouldn't give them any chance whatsoever.
In-game live, prime time.
Back-to-back, just utterly stinker quarters.
In-game live, overtime.
Honestly, as you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
This is March, people, and my goodness, do we have an unbelievable week setting up, fresh off of a week last week that saw incredible things done over the weekend, teams punching their tickets into March Madness. Dreams can come true this week, and dreams can be shattered as well. I'm Donnie Rightside. As we wait for Ben Stevens to get back, we're going to go right to John Rothstein, who I know has an unbelievable busy week. We don't even know if he slept. John, how's it going today? And also, how are we feeling here energy-wise?
Oh, we're juiced up, Donnie. It's one of the great weeks of the year. Championship week in college basketball. Bids will be punched. Hearts will be broken. Dreams will be made. Donnie, there's only 3 words to sum up what we're going to have here over the next 7 days. This is March.
It's fantastic stuff to watch it play out. Next Sunday will be Selection Sunday, and away we go. But let's take a look at what happened over this past weekend in the ACC. It's what we always think it's going to come down to. The final day of ACC play between the North Carolina Tar Heels and the Duke Blue Devils, and it did not disappoint. A slight favorite at the FanDuel Sportsbook. Duke headed into this game as a favorite. Final score, Carolina 84-79. The full control of the ACC regular season now belongs once again to the North Carolina Tar Heels. What did you see from that game Saturday night? What were you impressed with, John?
Well, reaffirmation that North Carolina didn't hit a double or a triple with its evaluations in the transfer portal. North Carolina hit a home run. Harrison Ingram, as we know, has become one of the great utility players in college basketball, has also become a better three-point shooter at power forward. But Cormac Ryan, the grad transfer from Notre Dame, has fit in seamlessly. Hubert Davis retooled his team after last season when it missed the NCAA tournament and has North Carolina again up among college basketball's elite. North Carolina is still in contention very much for that 4th number 1 seed coming up in 6 days on Selection Sunday.
One of those years in the ACC, John, maybe not as deep as what we anticipated in the past, but certainly 2 front runners here. If we look at the FanDuel Sportsbook heading into the conference tournament, it's the North Carolina Tar Heels at a plus 180 price, now drawing even with the Duke Blue Devils at a plus 180 price. We actually had Duke earlier this morning, John, as a slight favorite in this tournament. Wake Forest at a plus 750 number, along with Clemson at plus 950. Is it just so easy to look at the ACC tournament and say that final should be North Carolina or Duke? Or maybe, who should we be looking at there as maybe with a long shot that can punch their ticket into the tournament with the automatic bid?
You know, I'm looking at this Pitt team under Jeff Capel as a team that's flying under the radar. They're very much in the bubble picture. They've won 21 games. They have a star in Blake Hinson, a player that I put on my All-ACC first team this year. And Pitt also has 2 very underrated guards, Carlton Carrington and Jalen Lowe, who I think have a chance to break out during the ACC tournament. Pitt, remember, last year went to the NCAA tournament, won a game in the first 4 against Mississippi State, then beat Iowa State in the round of 64. It wouldn't shock me if Pitt has a big week in Washington, D.C.
Fun times there in the ACC as we look forward to maybe one of those teams on Tobacco Road making a run and cutting down the nets in March. But in an SEC tournament play coming up this weekend, it should be fantastic. The SEC no longer a football conference. Fantastic basketball all the way through, which does include those Kentucky Wildcats over the weekend, an 85-81 win over the SEC regular season champion Tennessee Volunteers. What are we looking forward for the Wildcats? Winners of 7 of 8 games. The only trip up was against LSU on the road, where they had that double-digit lead in the second half. I'm really impressed with Kentucky is bringing down the stretch here, John.
You know, Kentucky's been a different team since it lost at Rupp Arena to Gonzaga. You mentioned the run that it's on, 7-1 with the only loss coming at the buzzer against LSU. And part of that transformation has been due to Justin Edwards. Justin Edwards was the highest touted recruit in Kentucky's fabled recruiting class at the start of the season. Did not perform well for a large portion of the season, but over the last month, he has emerged into a bona fide weapon for John Calipari. And, you know, Donnie, I always evaluate teams for the NCAA tournament based on what they're able to show away from their home floor. In the last month, Kentucky has won at Tennessee, won at Auburn, won at Mississippi State. That's very, very impressive.
If we take a look at a side on each one of here in the Kentucky Wildcats, you take a look at Coach Calipari, which so many times in NCAA action, which I'm fascinated with, and of course, it usually starts with your starting 5. That's where you get a bulk of the scoring. But John, take a look at the bench scoring minutes that you can get there for Kentucky. It's really impressive. Is there a strategy that Calipari is using by saying, you know what, I know I have Shepard off the bench who dropped 27 points. Dillingham has been wonderful off the bench this year with 11 points in that game. Is there a strategy moving forward that Cal's like, you know what, I don't know if they're hot hands here, but I love them coming off the bench?
Well, it reminds me a little bit of what John Calipari had in the 14-15 season when Kentucky went 38-1 that year, when he brought Tyler Ulis and Devin Booker off the bench behind Andrew and Aaron Harrison. Kentucky obviously has an All-American in its starting lineup, and Antonio Reeves has capable scoring also from guys like DJ Wagner, but I also think that Kentucky is more than capable of using its reserves in crunch time. I posted on my own personal platform, collegehoopstoday.net, on Sunday, my top 6 men in college basketball. 1 and 2 in the list were Reed Sheppard and Rob Dillingham.
Taking a look there at the Tennessee Volunteers, it's one, like, we love to watch elite players in big-time games, and you got that at a Connect. He shot 29 times from the floor, ended up with 40 points here. Moving forward, this is the blueprint for Tennessee, where Connect is going to be the go-to guy here, and they're going to ride him if they expect to make a deep run in March?
Well, the big difference between this Tennessee team and other Tennessee teams that Rick Barnes has coached, and keep in mind, Rick Barnes over the past 6 seasons has won an average of 24 games a year on Rocky Top. But the big difference in this team is having a guy like Dalton Connect who can get you a bucket down the stretch. But the facts are the facts. Tennessee has not performed very well in the NCAA tournament under Rick Barnes. 3 years ago, that looked like a Final Four caliber team, lost to Oregon State in the bubble. 2 years ago, Tennessee won the SEC tournament, lost to Michigan, who was an 11 seed in the round of 32. And then last year, beat Duke in the round of 32, but then lost to Florida Atlantic in the Sweet 16. So Tennessee, again, until it proves that it can advance to the final destination before the Final Four, which is the Elite Eight, I think it's hard to trust Tennessee in the NCAA tournament. But I will say this. If Tennessee is able to get a number 1 seed on Selection Sunday, which is still very much in play for, it will be the first time that Tennessee is ever a number 1 seed in program history. And it will also be the first time that Rick Barnes has been a number 1 seed since 2003 at Texas with TJ Ford, which is the only time that Rick Barnes has led a team to the Final Four.
See if they can do it this year. An exciting tournament heading up next week, or should I say this week here in the SEC. Let's take a look at the Big 12, my favorite conference in college basketball. Houston with an emphatic win on Saturday, 76-46 over Kansas there. You take a look at a team that comes to a high major this year. What do we expect? Tripped a little bit to start the conference basketball season, but they've been unbelievably impressive moving forward. 15-3 in their first season in the Big 12. An unbelievably big win over the weekend here, John, by Houston.
Yeah, statement win by Houston. And, Kelvin Sampson obviously had already cemented himself as a Hall of Fame caliber coach before this season. But he reiterated that with the performance that he has done this year in the Big 12. Houston was winning about 86% of its regular season games in its last 3 years in the American Athletic Conference. This year in the Big 12, the Cougars first in the conference, Houston is still winning over 80% of its conference games. You can change the leagues. You can't change the Cougars' products. And I think it's only a matter of time before Kelvin Sampson is enshrined in the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame.
See John all the time on TV here, but also doing big things here with the FanDuel Sportsbook. And the reason why we bring the FanDuel Sportsbook into this one is those lines are moving here. Looking at cutting down the nets, we'll see these numbers change from now through Selection Sunday. If we're looking at the top of the heap, numbers have improved here for the Connecticut Huskies from a 5-1 price to plus 480. You take a look at Houston, who was a 7-1 price over the weekend, now at a plus 650 price. And Purdue, who was a 7-1 price here, John, slipping back to plus 750. Looking at that top line here moving forward, are we expecting Connecticut, Houston, and Purdue to easily win their conference tournaments, or could these numbers be changing by the time we get to Selection Sunday next week?
I expect Connecticut and Purdue and Houston to win their respective conference tournaments because when you think about these 3 teams, they've all separated themselves from the rest of their leagues and also throughout the rest of college basketball. UConn, Houston, Purdue, all 28-3 entering their respective conference tournaments. But for a lot of these programs, that are at the top, this troika, the season doesn't begin until now. Houston needed to prove that it could handle itself in the Big 12. It's done that. It won a Big 12 regular season title. But if you're Kelvin Sampson and you have gotten this program to a Final Four, to an Elite Eight, you want to go back to college basketball's most hallowed showcase and have a chance to win a national championship. If you're UConn and Dan Hurley, you want to win a Big East tournament title this week. You didn't do that last year when you won a national championship. And You obviously want to go back-to-back and be the first program to win back-to-back national titles since Billy Donovan did it at Florida in 06 and 07. And obviously, if you're Purdue, there is only one way to fully exercise the demon from last year against FDU, and that's getting to the Final Four in Phoenix and taking Purdue to the Final Four for the first time since 1980.
I certainly believe they can get there playing great basketball. Sometimes I want to take out those demons over the past 2 years and say, what have they done for me lately? Well, Purdue has been very good down the stretch. We'll see what they do in the Big Ten tournament. But let's focus all eyes on Madison Square Garden, one of the biggest shows each and every year. It's the Big East Conference Tournament. It's this week, and we're ready to go. The favorites here would be Connecticut at a minus 150 price, and rightfully so, followed by Creighton, Marquette, and St. John's. One of the more intriguing teams here, John, as we've noticed. Creighton goes into Philadelphia and wins at the buzzer, where Villanova's down as many as 24 points in this game. Villanova has to win a few basketball games being on the edge. Let's start there. What's the prognosis for the Wildcats up in the Garden this week?
You know, if Villanova won 2 games this week at the Big East tournament, I think it would give itself a chance to get in that large bid to the NCAA tournament. But, Donnie, what happens is when you have opportunities to cement yourself as an NCAA tournament team, and you don't capitalize on them, all of a sudden you give the rest of the field an opportunity to play catch-up, and you put the decision back in the committee's hands. Villanova can put itself back in play with 2 wins, but to cement itself as an NCAA tournament team for good has to win 3 games at Madison Square Garden.
Let's move up the ladder here. And by the way, I believe you are the host of College Hoops Today, which is the only podcast that does get played live 52 weeks per year. You've had Shaka Smart on to talk about it, so you're the guy to talk to here. Marquette is a 6-1 price here in the Garden to win the Big East tournament. Tyler Kolek, he's going to be the key. I saw him yesterday, or over the weekend, I should say, shooting around here, getting ready. Will he be playing, or do you think, in the Big East tournament? And what's his prognosis moving forward?
It's still to be determined. You know, I talked to Shaka Smart on Sunday. He told me there was no news really to update on Tyler Kolek. He's still progressing, and that Marquette's going to announce here in the middle of the week whether or not he can play in the Big East tournament. But if you're Marquette and you've already won a Big East tournament with Tyler Kolek, which you did a year ago, and the ultimate goal is the NCAA tournament, I would not be surprised if the Golden Eagles hold Tyler Kolek out of the lineup this week in New York. But again, we're waiting on official word from Marquette on that matter.
So if we take a look at the top 2 teams here in the Big East heading into this tournament, it's Connecticut, as we said, at a minus 150 price, then Creighton at plus 350 with that big win over Villanova in Philadelphia. Is it going to be these 2 teams that we're probably looking at in the final if Marquette comes in a little bit shorthanded?
I think so. I'm expecting a UConn-Creighton championship game in the Big East tournament on Saturday night on 33rd Street in between 7th and 8th. But I also think we could get an incredible atmosphere coming up on Friday night if St. John's were to beat Seton Hall and then match up with UConn in the Big East tournament semifinals. The Red Storm have not been in the semifinals of the Big East tournament since 2000, which is the last time this program won an NCAA tournament game. That would mean that it would be Rick Pitino against Dan Hurley Friday night at the world's most famous arena.
Check out the College Hoops Today podcast here, doing big things. It's John Ross. He's not sleeping. You know it is. Daylight Fitness right now. He's ready to go. We'll be back shortly here. A little Fade the Public poll.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
In the Big Ten, it's the same thing. No offense to you guys. This feels like the Penn State rule. This feels like
This is
a guaranteed Penn State to get in.
We need to find a way to let them in because they can't beat Michigan. They can't beat Ohio State. But if we make them a third,
they get in.
Third,
this is the Penn State rule.
Be better than the West half.
Yep.
That 1 year that Lightning in a Bottle catches on the West half, we'll let them in too because they'll bring people.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
The books are treating the Celtics 4 points better at minimum than maybe every single team in the NBA. And so far, I believe they've covered every game since the break.
The Celtics' strict goal here, anything less than a finals appearance and a finals championship is going to be a failure for the Celtics. They got all the pressure in the world across the board here.
Game time decisions only on SportsGrid.
Laying points on the road in college basketball is an absolute landmine. I would not do it. I won't do it the rest of the year. I'm done doing that because it just consistently loses.
I mean, 3 possessions in a 9-point game in which the opposition now is the clock, not the actual team you're facing, right?
Right.
And these guys are taking up shots. I mean, it's just like, that's why it's the NBA.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid. SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Pro League Soccer, powered by Marca.
I would be willing to bet the under 2.5 goals.
Fantasy sports today.
Especially in head-to-head formats in fantasy, I think I'm going to go with Juan Soto.
Game time decisions.
People don't like it. I don't really care. I cannot believe anybody is betting the Clippers at this number.
Betting above the
All
rim.
I've heard you say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live, all access.
Nobody has been more profitable as a dog than Shaka Smart Team.
Winning back-to-back road games. I don't care if they're playing Topeka High. I wouldn't give them any chance whatsoever.
In-game live, prime time.
Back-to-back, just utterly stinker quarters.
In-game live, overtime.
Honestly, as you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
I promise you I still host the early line. I am Ben Stevens. He is Donnie right side. We end out this second hour live right here on this Monday all across the SportsGrid network. Apologies for the technical difficulties. We're rocking and we're rolling into hour number 3 in just a few moments. But to end out this second hour, of course, we love hearing from you as it is conference championship week at the high major level in men's college basketball. Which conference tourney stands out to you the most? That was the question in Fade the Public. Which college basketball conference tournament at the high major level is the most intriguing? Big 12, Big East, SEC, or if you selected other, you must reply. I took other and then shared a photo of myself wearing my Big 10 hat. Most of the public at this moment, though, more than 38%, going with the Southeastern Conference. DRS, you fading the public?
But yeah, I am going to fade the public, but also the real Big Ten championship was decided yesterday, I believe. So what are we even talking about the Big Ten as other at this point? I went Big 12, which is only 20% out of it because I just have an affinity for the Big 12. But yeah, you can't vote Big 10. They played their championship yesterday, Ben. That was a big one.
It was a big one. The Iowa women's Hawkeyes winning their 3rd consecutive Big Ten tournament title. However, what might Iowa, the men's team, do firmly on the bubble? Right now, the Big East does have some odds, minus 150. UConn an odds-on favorite to win a regular season and tournament title in the Big East. The ACC, North Carolina and Duke, now co-favorites at plus 180. Duke was a short favorite at plus 180, 10 cents in front of North Carolina just a couple of hours ago. We're waiting on everything else. We'll have plenty of conference tournament coverage coming your way in hour number 3. But we start hour 3 with some NFL news. The free agency primer as the league year starts this week in the National Football League. Hour 3 starts in 55 seconds.